Hello and welcome to day 4 of How to Hold On to Self-Care at the Holidays. I'm Christy Tending of christytending.com. I'm so thrilled that you're here. We are now more than halfway through or in the home stretch of this mini course. And I really hope that you're enjoying these videos as much as I am loving putting them together. So in this video, I want to talk about how we infuse the sacred and precious rituals into our everyday. So how do we carry our self-care practice as a practice throughout this season? And one of the ways that we do this is by creating ritual. And I've talked about practices so far that we could turn into ritual, but I want to focus today on how we create the rituals themselves. So regardless of whether you're going to be mostly on your own this holiday season or traveling, whether you'll be with friends or family, there is always opportunity for rituals that ground us, that remind us of the sacred, and that reorient us towards self-compassion, self-care, and our highest intentions. So before we get started, why don't we close our eyes, taking a few deep breaths, allowing ourselves to truly arrive here and now, and letting any other concerns be outside for a moment. Letting worries about the past or the future be in the past or the future. Being in this present moment right here. Bringing your awareness into your body and into your heart, and letting concern for the other people in your life take a break, and being here fully with yourself. When we do this, it doesn't harm others. It offers us the resources we need in order to be truly present caregivers. Letting any outside sounds be outside. And bringing all of our attention to the here and now, to the breath, to this moment, to the sensations that are arising, the feelings that are arising right here and now. What is present for you? And how can you be fully present with that without trying to change it or shift it? Just being a compassionate witness. And then letting the eyes float open, coming into the room once again, into the here and now. So I've divided up today's lesson into 5 parts. So 5 different ways that we can create ritual. And some of these are to do on your own. Some of these are to do with others. And regardless of the group of people you're spending time with, whether they're like us and a little bit woo-woo, regardless if they have a spiritual background, I'm hoping that these are practices that you can infuse into everyday life and that will be supportive and grounding, first and foremost. So the first thing that I want to bring up when it comes to ritual is the idea that it needs to be big and splashy and heroic and complicated, because it really doesn't. Ritual can be incredibly simple. It can be really a series of baby steps. And that's really the consistency with which we show up that's most important when it comes to a ritual. So that's the first thing that I want to say is even if you don't have a lot of time and money, all of these things are available to you. So the first way that I like to think about ritual is how I'm starting my day and how I'm ending my day. So mornings and evenings are very important to me. And even if you're visiting family, or even if you have a huge number of things on your plate this season, taking just 5 to 10 minutes of ritual of sacred time for yourself right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep can be very grounding, very centering, and can be really supportive of your self-care. It sets the tone for how we move into the day. It sets the tone for how we move into the dream world, for how we rest. So whatever self-care practice suits you and works for you and is already present in your life, I really advise taking just 5 to 10 minutes in the morning and in the evening to attend to those practices. Often these are times of day when we're by ourselves already, so we don't need to worry about slipping away or trying to carve out time, but rather this is built-in time that already belongs to us. So before others in the house are awake, maybe before others are, or after others are already asleep, just taking a little bit of time to yourself for whatever self-care practices are speaking to you. So maybe that's meditation, a little mindful movement, journaling, spending some time with your intention setting workbook is always a nice choice. A little prayer, a little something. Maybe it's washing your hands very mindfully. It truly doesn't matter as long as you are attending to it mindfully, as long as you are present with whatever the practice is that you've chosen. So taking that time in the morning or in the evening to incorporate a little bit of extra self-care can be a great way of greeting the day and then sealing the day. So that's the first one that I want to offer. And it's really one that anyone can do. The second piece requires a little bit more effort, and that is creating white space. So it's a term that I use a lot, and I think it's a fairly common phrase at this point, but white space is any time on your calendar when you don't have another obligation. So I like to schedule white space for myself. I'm such an introvert that I really need to schedule time to be on my own, to be doing my self-care practice, and to have a little time for ritual. So think about where you could schedule yourself some breathing room, a little bit of white space where you don't have anything else to attend to at that particular time. And try to infuse it with as much intention and ritual and luxury as possible. So I like to think about white space as really a time to incorporate, to rest, to integrate, to digest. My husband calls it introverting out. I call it integration and digestion. So it's really about processing through everything that's happened, whether it's taking in a lot of stimuli, a lot of people, whether it's being really productive and doing a lot of errands all morning. Whatever it is, it's just a little quiet time to let all of that sort of seep in and digest in my body. And I like to create ritual around that time. Because white space, that time, it's not nothingness. It's very intentional what I'm doing by being on my own and being quiet. So I like to play favorite music. I like to make myself a cup of tea, maybe put on a favorite sweater, wrap myself in a favorite blanket, and really make it a cozy, nurturing experience. And what I heard from so many people in preparing this course, in getting ready to teach this little mini course and this material, is that this is what people need the most. So many of you have told me that you are highly sensitive, many of you are introverts, and that it's really the constant rush, the constant being around people, the kind of go, go, go um, mood of the holidays that's really trying. And so creating this white space and creating some ritual around it can be a really nice antidote to what we as sensitive people are being asked to do, which is essentially to go against our nature. um, it's a good antidote to being extroverted. And I think, particularly in this moment politically in which we find ourselves, it's a good antidote to the kind of constant bombardment we're experiencing with the news, and particularly with very emotionally distressing news in some cases. So, scheduling a little time when you're not on social media, not in front of your computer, not with others, when you can truly be present with yourself um, in whatever way you need to be, um, and create some sweetness around that experience rather than simply rushing to the next task um, that you're looking to accomplish. So, finding some white space and then making it special. Um, the next area of ritual that I want to talk about is celebration, which may seem counterintuitive at this time of year, given that there are so many celebrations in which we're expected to participate. Um, and really, what I mean by celebration is acknowledging enoughness. So, I personally have a lot of challenge around how I define enough for myself, when I've done enough, and knowing that I am enough. That is an ongoing challenge as somebody who is um, a high achiever. So I find that this is a great time of year to, and this goes back to really the conversation around boundaries that we've been having kind of throughout this mini course, but really defining, okay, what is necessary? What is enough? And how do I know when I've reached enough? And so I invite you to journal a little bit about that. What is enough for you? How do you know when you've reached it? And then what kind of celebration, acknowledgement can you offer yourself um, when you have accomplished what you've defined as enough? And being present and being willing to sit with that enoughness without rushing to the next thing, without starting the next project, without saying, yeah, but, and talking about how you could have done more. Really think about what enough means to you and how you can meet yourself in celebration in that space. I think one of the things that leads to overwhelm at this time of year is what I call the comparison trap, which is comparing your accomplishments to others' accomplishments. And what that often means is comparing your middle to someone else's end. It means comparing your insides to someone else's well curated social media outsides. So this isn't about Pinterest perfection. This isn't about holding yourself to an impossible standard. It's about celebrating all of the ways that you're already so enough and so accomplished. And I know that if you're here in this course, you are a sensitive, compassionate, sweet person, and that you care about others. You've all sort of opted in to that. And so cutting yourself some slack and allowing yourself to celebrate what you have accomplished rather than dwelling on what you haven't. And I think particularly around New Year's, this becomes even more important because we start looking at what are the commitments that we made earlier in the year? What are the things that we really wanted to do this year? And instead of celebrating all of what we've done, we dwell on what we failed to do, or where we missed the mark, or where we procrastinated, or where we perceive that we've failed. And really, instead, I invite you into a space of sacred celebration and recognition of all of the ways that you are already doing great. Um, Again, I know that this is a challenge for me. It's a challenge for many of us, but the results are worth it. Committing yourself to celebration on a regular basis and committing to being present with your enoughness is so worth it. So that's ritual number 3, is celebrating your enoughness. So the last 2 are community practices, and they're things that you can do either with family or with friends, with any kind of community, however you define it. And I find these to be fairly accessible practices, even for your non-hippie family, or your non-hippie friends. The first is one that I've been practicing in my community for years, which is the gratitude circle. It's very simple. You hold hands. Each person in the circle says what they're thankful for, why they're grateful. And this is a very common practice for those of us in the US who celebrate Thanksgiving, but it's also a great opportunity to get to know the people around your table, to set the tone of the group in the direction of gratitude, instead of in the direction of scarcity, to set a group intention around gratitude and thankfulness and joy rather than divisiveness. And I have a feeling that this year in particular, this is going to be a helpful way of helping us to remember that we may have a lot of differences, but we share our humanity. And orienting ourselves towards gratitude allows us to stay present with what is good. This year, I know that there's a lot of fear. I know that there's a lot of anger in some places. And there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, all around as to what happens next. And so remembering our gratitude is kind of a revolutionary act at this point. It's an act that puts us back in that space of recognizing how much good there already is and staying present there. The final practice that I want to offer you as a ritual is altar building. And I offer altar building as one of the master classes inside Sacred Focus, which is my signature course, which I'll be telling you about in just a moment. But altar building can be a really beautiful community practice. And maybe for your folks, you have to reframe it as something else. But it's a practice that I learned from my teacher, and I try to incorporate it whenever possible. So an altar is simply a central focal point space where people can put sacred or meaningful objects. They can put prayers or the names of people they want to remember, either people they've lost or people who simply aren't present with the group at that time in that space. And everyone in the group who's coming together can infuse that space with a sense of sacredness. And so I think it's a beautiful way of, even if the people you're sharing space with don't have a spiritual or sacred practice, it's a beautiful way of creating a visual touchstone, a way of coming together, a way of honoring those who can't be physically present, and a way of remembering the sacred in a visual and tangible way, which I think is pretty important and pretty great. So you may need to call it something else if your people are not particularly down with the altar. But it's a really great practice, and I find a lot of value in it when it comes to sharing it with community. I think it helps to orient people in a visual way, in the same way that you are orienting yourself around a written intention, it orients people toward a sense of shared humanity, of community, of really slowing down, of de-overwhelming, and remembering what is important and what is sacred. So I hope that those are helpful rituals for helping you to remember the sacred, to remember what is precious. I want to share a little bit about what's coming next. So tomorrow is the final video in how to hold on to self-care at the holidays. We're going to be bringing it all together. I'm going to be talking about internal versus external self-care, and I'm also going to be sharing ways to really wrap up self-care as something that you can carry with you anytime, any place, wherever you are, no matter who you're with. So you definitely don't want to miss tomorrow's video. It's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about talking about this. And then also, if you are thinking to yourself that this is very useful, if you are thinking that this is something that doesn't just apply to the holidays, that isn't just for this time of year, but is something that you're interested in carrying into the future, I am hereby inviting you to join me inside my course, Sacred Focus. It is my flagship, signature, super awesome course. And it's all about de-overwhelming your life and creating more of the sacred in your everyday. So it takes all of the practices and all of the concepts that we've visited so far in this mini course, and it really amplifies and expands on all of them. It's a beautiful way of kind of decluttering your life of what isn't serving you, and of amplifying and bringing to more light what brings you more joy and what will help you do your work more effectively. I have personally used this methodology in my own life. I go through this course myself once every 6 months to make sure that it's working, to make sure that it's orienting people in the right direction. And I have to say, this time several years ago was really the genesis of this particular course and this particular mini course that you're in now. I had a very stressful holiday season. I felt stressed all season long. I emerged in the new year feeling burned out, exhausted, and not particularly energized about the year ahead. I felt pretty uninspired. And so I sat down and really went through and developed this methodology to clear away what wasn't serving me, to really do away with overwhelm in a really meaningful way, and to create a lot more space for the things that brought me joy and brought me to life. So that's how Sacred Focus came to be. Sacred Focus is, as I said, a 9-week course. It includes 9 modules to help you de-overwhelm, to help you craft more of the sacred. It also includes 9 video masterclasses, all about various self-care practices, so you can really go deep with a lot of the self-care practices that we've talked about here. And as a very limited time bonus, you also get a free seat in my solstice day-long retreat, which is happening December 31st. It's a full day of masterclasses, Q&A, sacred ritual, visioning, awesome self-care, and plenty of free gifts. That is free for all my Sacred Focus students and is exclusive for my Sacred Focus course. So if you're thinking about joining Sacred Focus, now is the time, because you also get this amazing day long with me. And just to let folks know that the price on Sacred Focus will be going up after December 21st. So if you've been on the fence about joining us inside Sacred Focus, now is really the time, because the price will be going up on that. So that is my heartfelt invitation to you. You can either look below this video if you're on my website to find all the details, or you can go to my website, which is christytending.com, And I can't wait to see you inside Sacred Focus. It's going to be a beautiful experience, and I can't wait to see you on retreat because that is going to be the best ever. All right, I will see you all tomorrow for video number 5 for how to hold on to self-care at the holidays. And I hope that you have a beautiful day full of self-care. Take good care.